From the Alfred Lewin Foundation for the invitation and the opportunity to illustrate the work it does through its library, named after Gino Bianco. The Alfred Lewin Foundation is a small cultural institution based on mainly on the voluntary work of many friends and private contributions. Alfred Lewin and Gino Bianco. It is starting from these names the reason for our participation in this seminar. Alfred Lewin, a young German Jew shot in Forlì in 1944, together with his mother Jenny and 17 other Jews, women and men. And Gino Bianco, journalist, militant, libertarian socialist, researcher, and expert scholar of English labor, from whose legacy of books and papers from his personal archive, the idea of creating the library that bears his name took shape. You will therefore understand how among our main purposes there are on the one hand that of cultivating the memory of the Shoah, and on the other that of keeping alive the ideals of socialism without hiding our predilection for the humanitarian, libertarian component of it, and its mutualistic, cooperative, and self-government manifestations in general. Through donations and purchases, the Gino Bianco Library opened in October 2009 as put together a remarkable newspaper library including magazines, Italian and non-Italian, of humanitarian socialism, anarchism, liberal socialism, republicanism, and democratic liberalism from the last decades of the 19th century to the 70s of the 20th century. Without forgetting, of course, some of those born during the struggle for liberation from fascism and after the Second World War. This led to the idea of digitizing these magazines and creating a digital newspaper library to be hosted on its own website. Biblioteca Gino Bianco si dice così, .it. So as to allow their consultation, which we wanted free, online. Fra qualche minuto, in a minute, I will show you the site. You may have wondered why this specialization in magazines. Not having lived through the phase in which it was defined, I cannot guarantee it, but I believe that it was evidently affected by the fact that among the founders of the Lewin Foundation and the library, there were those who were and still are editors of the magazine Una Città. An intent to seek in the past those experiences felt similar in the democratic and internationalist supportive liberal gaze has gone so far as to create the digital newspaper library. which with these historic magazines clearly wants to bring to the attention and do them justice. Traditions of thought remained a minority and forgotten. We also recall, thanks to the relationship with Gino Bianco, we received from Miriam Rosenthal-Chiaromonte a substantial part of the library of Nicola Chiaromonte, who founded and directed with Ignazio Silone the magazine Tempo Presente from 1956 to 1968. Where he left a series of articles and short essays fundamental in its production. Moreover, that donation also included the complete collection of Politics, a famous magazine of the American left of the 40s, which saw Chiaromonte among the main protagonists. Nicola Chiaromonte was in fact a cosmopolitan figure, born in 1905, exiled to France since the 30s. He also fought in Spain for the Republic in the air squadron of André Malraux, and was subsequently an anti-totalitarian thinker, one of the greatest philosophical and literary essayists of Italian culture of the 20th century. In short, several factors played into the decision to undertake the digital newspaper library project, which I will describe briefly in its technical phases. The digital reproduction of the pages takes place using 3 different workstations depending on the format of the magazine. There is an A3 scanner. Another one is a book drive book scanner with 2 cameras. And another one is a camera on a table stand for larger documents. The processing of the image files follows straightening, cutting, possible retouching to improve the readability of text, to reach the creation of a PDF document for each issue, to be converted with a software that makes it browsable on the net. At the same time, we compile on the database of the Biblioteca Gino Bianco site the index of articles for each magazine issue. And once the flipping issue has been uploaded to the server, the software publishes the index on the site. And here I show you some example. Stefano is showing you Aretusa is a magazine of the after the Second World War. Here is the list of the issues of the periodicals, and on the right of the site you can you can see the list of all the periodicals browsable. Now we have over 50 periodicals in the site, also books, and later I'll tell you in particular some example. By clicking on each issue, the magazine is opened, and you can turn the pages by clicking on it, and you can also zoom on the pages to read well, and so questo you can experience the digital library. I can say to you that the decision was not to put online the simple PDFs, but we wanted to do something less cold, maintaining the effect of turning the pages on the screen, and also with the sound of the. I don't know if you can. But there is also you can hear the sound of the page turning. In addition to the free consultation, we have decided not to allow the printing or downloading of the files. This was a precaution towards any rights holders, which for magazines, in the case of a collective work as a whole, remain up to 70 years from the first publication. Although acting in the spirit of EU recommendations and directives, we have probably forced a bit the laws enforced at the time, not limiting consultation to the library terminals, and providing a service for the supply of digital copies to those who request them. For a collective work, a magazine, in fact, not only the rights of its author are valid, that is, whoever organizes and directs its creation, but also the hypothesis of those due to each collaborator, whose duration is determined on the life of each one. Moreover, these are copies, those who we supply to people who request. These copies are only for personal use, and so we can do it. However, I admit that I'm unable at this moment to tell you something about the recent developments regarding copyright in the European Union. So I don't know. Sì, dopo ne parlo. The site was opened in 2011, and as I said you before, currently collects the collections of 58 periodicals, 35 of which are complete, for a total of almost 5,000 issues. Among the digitizations, particularly significant due to the importance of the documents combined with their rarity, we mention at least some of them, like Giustizia e Libertà by Carlo Rosselli, Politics by Dwight MacDonald, an American magazine, Mercurio by Alba de Cespedes, L'Unità by Gaetano Salvemini, and Quaderni Piacentini by Pier Giorgio Bellocchio, and Rinascita, La Roma del Popolo by Giuseppe Mazzini, quindi so we go back till the 19th century. Without prejudice to our fundamental interests in the humanitarian and liberal, libertarian and the left-wing traditions, in recent years the attention of the library has also turned to the communist area and the period of fascism. To give a more complete picture of what the 20th century was, we digitized Rinascita, the political cultural monthly of Italian Communist Party, and with Pegaso and Oggi, magari fai vedere solo Oggi perché Pegaso non si vede, we started a work on cultural, literary and costume magazines from the years of the fascist regime. And with the collaboration of the Anna Kulishov Foundation in Milan, we also digitized Almanacco del Popolo d'Italia, that was a direct expression of the regime. On the site, it is possible to search for all indexed articles and brochures. You can do it in the window, little window on the upper right of the site. It occurs simultaneously by author and by word, or a part of it present in the titles. It is not a research by subject or keyword, which our database would allow, but which would have required an effort for the moment too great for us and slowed down our work. But I can say to you that there are some tricks you can do. For example, writing word roots in a certain way. it is possible to approximate the subject type of research by grouping a certain family of words in the results. For example, write feather, you can find federation, federalism, federal, and so on. From a research carried out, the site also allows you, as I said you before, to forward requests for digital copies to the library.
That you can get to young people, that you can wake up their interest. Since we are not Netflix, we cannot make a show. Actually, there was a movie about the younger brothers. It was a movie about the Brigata Corbari. That was not so historically accurate, as I've been told, but it was a mythological figure in its own. But the older brother was what we were interested in. So when they first presented us with all these documents, all these photos, all these things that testified about the fact that Tonino Spazzoli was a Republican, but he had early fascist sympathies. Then he abandoned those. Then he was friend with socialists. He was friend with, like everybody here in Forlì. Every grandfather could tell a Forlì guy that he was friend with fascists and socialists and Republicans. So he crossed paths with a lot of events. He was friends with people that were supposed to be his enemies, with people that in the end caused his death and his brother's death. And so with all of that, they came to us and they said, what can we do with this? We cannot write a book because we are not historians per se. We should make a website, but how to present this in a website? And so we came up with this a bit crazy idea and a bit messy idea, but I think that's interesting, which is this genealogical tree made of friends and events, and it's something like this. It's messy, I repeat, but it's what we think can stimulate the interest of somebody by linking everything together with historical events. On the left part of the screen you see the context, which is what was happening in history. In the center there's the two brothers, gli Spazzoli, and on the right there's further informations on single things. So we start with Tonino, and every box is clickable and you can read it. So this is Tonino as a young boy and his history. And then as you go, you see who he was friend with. Amicizia. You go here and you find this. He was a fascist element official. And you cross the phases of his life, his families, the youth, his older brother Pippo, when he was in the Battle of Fiume, the First World War, and you click here and you find the big events of his life that crossed path with everything else. For example, that's what we see when I tell you that they find out every little piece of paper, we digitalize those. So this is like when he went to Africa because he worked in stoves, heating equipment, and he had a factory in Africa. He went there to work for that, and so he was on a boat to Africa in 1938. We even have the ticket, I think, somewhere. And so these documents is travel to Africa. There are photos from Africa of him among the people, locals. And here's the ticket. We even have the ticket from where he went there with the plane this time. This is him in Tripoli. And postcards. We have every postcard he sent, and we also digitalized those. And then he was, as I told you, he was in the early stages of fascism, he was curious, like many other Republicans, of fascism as a social changing force. But then when Mussolini bowed his head to the king to get crowned as a prime minister, the Republicans were out. Most of them were out of that because they certainly weren't going for a king. And so they became opponents to the regime, and they became observed by the police, so vigilato dalla polizia, I think you understand what it means. It was controlled, so we have reports from police forces on the activities of these people. And yeah, but as you see here, there's update of May 2020, because after we did this, we went and sometimes some new documents come out. It seems impossible that something new came out of almost 100 years ago, but it happens. It happens that a friend of a friend finds a document that links to your story, and then you take it and you update it. You update the website, and so it was controlled by police, and then it was sent to confino, which is confinement. You probably understand that. And he sent photos and letters from when he was out with his friends. This is Arpinati, which was another fascist. And we also have, of course, family photos, which is everything that makes the period. I think that a young person can relate to photos like this. More than pages of history books, because you see the background of history happening there. You see the quiet moments while there was a war. You see things like that. Family photos and everything that we can get our hands on ends up here. And this makes a person out of him, more than a page in a history book. So, his younger brother, Arturo, he has a very small section here because sadly he was dead by the time he was 20-something. But he became a pilot, and then he was against the regime, and he enrolled in a partisan brigade, a pretty famous partisan brigade that ended up being hanged in Piazza Saffi to the lampposts. Even if Arturo was very young and we know very little about him, this is interesting. I'll show you if I find it. L'infanzia. These are histories about people that have been, for many reasons, almost forgotten. The descendants of them tell us that they want their story to be more known because they were important figures. They were gold medal for the resistance, actually. They were awarded the highest prize for a resistant combatant. But we had to find every source we could. And one important and unpractical way to find new information is this. There was this person, Anna Spazzoli, which went to a school, in elementary school, very young people, and told the story of his friendship with his cousin Arturo. And that's where we find some informations we have haven't been able to find anywhere else, in no book or anything else. So interviewing these people is the key to get the small details before it's too late, because if it was not for this tale, we didn't know anything about his young age. Because Arturo, he was young, he died young, and he had a brother that was more important than him. So we know everything about Tonino, and we don't know about Arturo, but even in this small school visit of this person that told the story and somebody recorded it and put it online, that's key to understanding a part of his life. So
The memory.
it's the living memory that has to be preserved. In order to keep these things, not only books and documents, it's also people. So we also collect video interviews of people. We have, well, this has started 4 years ago, but we want to enhance it. So in the end, they ended up, like I told you, they both died. The Brigata Corbari, in which Arturo was enrolled, was hanged in Piazza Saffi. Tonino, he was arrested. He was brought to Piazza Saffi to see the body of his brother. Then he was killed in jail. And il riconoscimento postumo, this means the posthumous acknowledgement of their actions, which is, we collect here everything that was written and made after they were dead, which is not much, but thanks to this website also something more is coming up, like the association is still active today. We are organizing things every now and then about the memory. Yeah, of course, the last 2 years we were stopped because of the COVID, but now we're starting again. And these are the medals and the motivation of their medals. So, of course, this was made all with volunteer work, and all because we live in this place where everything happens. So it's easier to do this when you can talk to somebody and they remember something and they tell you that, and they have a postcard and they have a document, and you can save it and put it online. It's easier because we live in the place, and so we know people that know stories and have written about it. And the only thing you have to do is to make these people meet, sit around a table and take out their notes and compile everything. And you can get a pretty good result with a small action in local level, I think. So we have many people that have written the articles, that write books on these things, and so thanks to them we could make this website. This brings me to another website, which was born after this, and it's made on.
In the RAI, the national television.
This?
Story.
No, it's another, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Since there was this massacre in Forlì, which is also, this is not very well known, but it was one of the biggest massacres in the Second World War, in the single massacre of most people, one of the biggest in Sant'Anna di Stazzema, I think, is the biggest, and this comes second.
Marzabotto.
And this was, on the course of 2 days, almost 30 people were killed by the Nazis, and among those, there were 18 people that had nothing to do with Forlì. They were not from Forlì. They had foreigner names, And Fondazione Alfred Lewin was born when some of the people that worked in the magazine, he told you before, Una Città, find out that, I'll show you, found out that in the cemetery in Forlì, there were unmarked graves in the mass burial site with strange names. And they say, who are these people? And dove sarà? Biblioteca, forse. Vabbè, qui c'è. And they found out that in Forlì, these people were killed in Forlì because, yeah, this is the tomb. They were killed in Forlì because in Forlì there was one of the last place to hold prisoners when the Nazi Germans were retiring from the south. The jail in Forlì that is still operational, it's very old, it's a castle actually, Rocca, was the place where they sent the last people they wanted to kill, the last Jews they wanted to kill. They wanted to send to the camps, they wanted to just shot, to have them dead. And so these people were taken here and there from the south and central Italy and sent here, and they died here because of that. But they had nothing to do with Forlì. So we decided to compile their stories and not to call the website the massacre or the killings, but stories, 18 stories, because of the final moment of their life is sad and bloody, but they had huge and big lives that in a way are equal to the ones I told you before, because they crossed events from all the European history. So they came from Hungary, from Austria, from Germany, from all around Europe, and they had one thing in common. When the anti-Jew laws were passed in Germany, they thought that Italy would be safer. They heard that Italy would be safer. They heard that the fascism was not so anti-Semite. They heard that they could have a chance. Or maybe they tried to come here because that would be a place to start to go to Israel or Africa or Thailand or many places in the world, but to go away from Europe. And so the website opens with this very shocking quotation, which means, my dad was dead in 1927 because of stomach cancer. And later we thought ourselves that he was lucky because he didn't witness everything that happened after. This is said by Lizzie Levin, which is a sister of the Alfred that gives the name to our foundation. She was alive and became the president of our foundation, and she has passed now, because she was sent to England as a girl au pair. Like many other young women were saved because they were sent abroad. But her brother and her mother, they all flew from Germany and came to Italy, to Cremona, to open a bakery. And they worked as bakers there. And then, when the anti-Jews laws passed, they were Jews and they were foreigners, so they were considered like as enemies of the state. And they were sent to camps, which in Italy was a different deal than Germany, because we had two real concentration camps. One was in Modena, no? Fossoli, and the other one was in Campania. And but there were no, the others were sent to small villages. It's very, very small village, like 600 people, one there, two there. They were separated and lived as prisoners in these small towns. And depending on when you were sent, you had higher chance of surviving the war or not. Because in the end, who went to the south and stayed there was saved. didn't die and was liberated by the Americans. The others who were in the middle, like these people, or in the north, tended to die or to be sent to Auschwitz or something like that. And when you read their stories, and you see they are about to choose where to go, because sometimes they could ask, I want to go there because my mother is there, I want to go there because my cousin is there. You knew they were doing the wrong choice or the right choice, but that all amounted to that. And when you go into this detail of stories, you feel something in yourself, like if it was in me, because you see that the small life of them. And so this website, we wanted to do it like the other one, but I tried and it was a mess. It was like a huge ball of dots and lines crossing, and it was pretty difficult to do. So we simplified that, and we made small boxes for them on the left. So these are the people and the photos, and some of them we don't have a photo. Some of them, the only photo we have is the one the police took them. You can see it. These are segnaletic, I don't know how do you call them. The photos the police take you when they arrest you. Some others, because they were poor, most of them were refugees, were fleeing from Austria, from Germany, and they had no money, so they didn't have photos. It was something very expensive for the time. And I'll show you some of this. Yeah.
Grazie per la segnalazione.
Sì.